And we are live. Round two had some issues with some technical stuff. Nothing new here for us, but we're all set to go now. So what's up, guys? Nick here from P2W Fantasy, live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter for our Skrip to Ship show with my co-host, Stephie Smalls. And I was talking to Stephie earlier. I said, I saw the reference, Jordan in the flu game. That was a good one for Stephie this week because she's had a rough go, been under the weather, but as always, powering through things. So outside of that, or if you want to touch on that, what's been up? How's the week been?
It's been a rough week. I promise everyone I'm not always in shambles. I will at some point reel it in during my recording the other night that I had to get done. I had a fever. We had to keep stopping. It was really fun. But how are you? More exciting than my fever complaining.
Can't complain too much over here. Gonna be starting. This past week, Italy won the Euros. That was big time.
Yes.
Big Italy fan. Enjoyed that with some friends and family. I had too much fun, I think, that day. Other than that, just got the coaching job starting next week. So I'm just trying to balance the day job, the coaching job, and P2W Fantasy. But I think I'll be all right in all facets there. So nothing.
I
think
you can handle it.
About.
I think you can handle it.
I think so too. I feel like I've always just like juggled a couple things at once. So
yeah,
not chilling out is not too extreme there. But before we get into anything, so I always plug Fantasy Points Media Group. I dropped this video earlier last week, and I wanted just to plug it in here. I thought it was a good advertisement. Had some really good acting in it, so I wanted to make sure that I put this live out there on the stream too. So here we go to a Fantasy Points advertisement.
This used to be Chrissy. She would spend way too much time searching the web for fantasy help. She was overwhelmed with spreadsheets, rankings, and content to prepare for her drafts. And this is Chrissy now. She's won multiple championships, has all the information she needs in one place, and is super cool, all thanks to fantasypoints.com.
So check out fantasypoints.com, promo code 21WIN10. Had some grade A acting from Chrissy there, so I had to plug that. What Stephie and I have today on the podcast here, we have some mailbag questions again. I feel like we've done this once or twice before, but it's always a good podcast because I feel like we hit on a bunch of different topics from some people in the fantasy community, and I have a good time doing it. So I don't have any problems. And it feels like, Stephie, I don't know about you, doesn't it feel like it's a weird time for football because we haven't yet hit camp and everything is like a hot take or an argument about this dumbest things on Twitter and things.
And I tweeted about it today. I mean, this is like my first off season. I haven't even done a full season on Twitter, but like, what is going on? Now people are just like finding random. Now we're running out of players to talk about. You know, we went through like different parts of the off season here, and now we're slowly running out of players to talk about. So we're like pulling players out of our butts a little bit here.
A little bit, and we have some like weird arguments going on, and like
weird.
I don't know, people
talking about
reaching
following
us.
this and following that, and who's going to say hi to who at the expo? No,
it's wild. It's wild. My big thing, and I don't want to get too deep into it. My big thing is like I'm all for supporting some people, and you know I've made some great friendships, but I don't care how people run their accounts and their Twitter pages and anything. Like I got enough shit to worry about at home and stuff that I don't care. I'm not for the online drama.
Yeah. I just have fun. That's the whole point, right? I sent out a tweet, last weekend. Everyone can do their Twitter the way that they want to do. But at the end of the day, if you're not having fun with the content you're putting out, you're not having fun on Twitter, then what are you doing? Like, just get off Twitter. It's something serious. Like, why are you putting yourself through the stress?
Because you started playing fantasy football for fun, right? And then you probably started your fantasy football page or YouTube channel or Twitter handle, whatever the case is, for fun too. So I think we get away from it sometimes.
Exactly.
Definitely excited for the show today. We will get started with that in a second here.
Play to win, no fear to give. I feel but I can't forgive. I go all in this time, yeah, I won't regret. I'll pick the best, don't trip, they don't understand. I play to win, yeah, I play to win, I play to win. Yeah, I play to win, I play to win. Oh, play to win, I play to win. Yeah, play to win, I play to win.
Okay, so just like we've had in the past here, got some comments already. Dynasty Sun, great group there. I have my Dynasty Sons hat somewhere. I think it's chilling in the studio over here. Just like we've had in the past. So I asked Twitter, I said, hey, give us some mailbag questions. It can be about anything. So we have some interesting ones here. And we'll kick things off with good friend of the show, Triple Play Fantasy. So Triple Play, a little background with them. David Mendy, Eric Mendy, two brothers. They have a whole squad over there. My buddy Kevin's involved. I've been rolling with these guys probably since I started P2W. So I really respect this group of guys here. But they ask, who are the most valuable running back handcuffs? So I'm assuming going into this next season here. So Stephie, is there like one player? Is there a couple players? What's your view on this? I feel like we can talk about this for a whole podcast if we want.
Yeah, and you could, and you can go down a rabbit hole, I think, with this, and it comes to the term sleeper and all these words that we have. So handcuff, I'm just thinking of, to keep it simple, for the sake of the show, is a player that if the number one RB goes down, then the next player up could easily step in to fill his shoes, right? So there's three that automatically came to my mind. Again, bear with me. I obviously been a little under the weather, so if I'm forgetting a couple, you'll fill in the spots here. But I think of Chubb, Hunt, Zeke, Pollard, Aaron Jones, and AJ Dillon. Those are the first ones that came to my mind. I think especially with the positions that they're all in. Zeke and Tony is an interesting one because I think we saw Tony kind of come through. We saw shines of light where he really showed us that he can take over as that RB1 should Zeke, not necessarily perform as well. He had a little bit of a rough year. Dak coming back should rectify things. Their O-line coming back should, handle those issues. But, if something were to go wrong, you kind of have Tony who could easily step in. It's the same thing with Chubb and Hunt, where the two of them are pretty dynamic. I think Hunt, he does good he can handle his own as far as fantasy goes as an RB2. But then, Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon, another one. We still don't know. I mean, let's be serious by now. Aaron Rodgers is playing on the Packers or he's going to Jeopardy. I mean, this is it. I think we've been around this wagon too many times to continue talking about it. We're beating a dead horse. But again, another one, AJ Dillon, we saw him have those weeks where he really showed us that he could easily, if Jones can't be there, he can step up. I don't know as much as I don't feel as confident as AJ Dillon as a lot of people do. I feel a little bit more confident in Tony. But still, I think all three of these sets of guys are the handcuffs that I'm at least reaching for.
And I like the point you made about taking over, because I feel like the handcuff, the big idea with the handcuff is if the number one guy goes down, this guy takes the load. So you wouldn't say that about like Jonathan Taylor. If Jonathan Taylor goes down, Nyheim Hines will just take the load. He's not that type of running back. If you go to the Patriots, their 1-2 system, let's say it's Damian Harris. If Damian Harris goes down, James White has to take the load. He's not that running back. If Kareem Hunt has to carry the load, he's that dude. Like, he's that running back.
I'm laughing because you were going through my own thought process as I was going through this. You named the exact teams I was going to. Them like the Patriots. I'm like, no. And then I even went to Washington, right? McKissick could definitely do it. It's not that
perfect example. Yeah.
But Gibson is very much the dominant guy there. And I think you see that the coaches would have to make a change to the playbook where I think that these other guys could really fill the role. Maybe not obviously as, they can't dominate as much as maybe Chubb can, but I think Hunt could very easily take over his position.
Absolutely. Another one that came to mind, Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams. So I think that might be a camp battle, but I think if one of those guys is out of the picture, the other guy's going to be a lot more valuable knowing that he's not getting touches taken away. Another one that comes to mind, there's not a lot of pass catching that goes for this guy, but in the events, and knock on wood, we don't want anybody to get hurt, but just in these weird events, if J.K. Dobbins goes down and Gus Edwards gets 20 touches a game, I think he's a lot more valuable than both of them in the same system. Like, he's not that pass catcher, but instead of getting like 10 touches, if he gets 20, then he has a big jump in value. So just because of the state of that offense. So I feel like with this, go ahead.
No. I don't want to interrupt you. So finish your thought. Before
I was just saying for this sort of question, we can go down the list of all the handcuffs, but I think what you and I both got at is somebody who is not the starting running back, but if he would have some value carrying the load in fantasy.
Yeah, for sure. So this is actually something I wanted to ask you, because as I was thinking, I go to the 49ers, who have a very interesting backfield, and it's getting interesting as, the closer we get to the season. I swear this backfield is just getting more enticing, especially because the players I think will end up being on the field are not guys that are going very high in fantasy right now. So you have Wilson, who's out. It's confirmed. I just updated my injury tracker. He's going to be out at least till week 6. That does not mean he will not be out longer, especially with the meniscus injury. That's not coming back full force. So do not plan on seeing Wilson to be your full load-bearing dude for quite some time. Mostert couldn't make it through OTAs, couldn't make it through minicamp. It's the same old story with him. He bangs his knee and it's done for whatever. We don't really know what's going on. So then what does that leave us with? If even Mostert goes down, you have Gallman and Sermon, who I think would kind of be a cool backfield. I'm low-key into it. We saw Gallman. We've talked about this a million times, but I think Gallman might actually get his chance to be an RB2 for once, because I don't know that I feel as they're just going to start Sermon week 1 when they have Gallman, who's coming off of a very good season, a career-high season. They're not going to have the veteran start? I don't know about that. That I don't know about.
And a lot of people want to throw Elijah Mitchell is like that sleeper running back, but I think they also forget, what Wayne Gallman did in the absence of Saquon Barkley last year, because it was very, very relevant. So I agree. If depending on the touches over there, people will become interesting. If one guy in a system like that is out of the picture, we already had Jeff Wilson, who I really liked, but he's out of the picture. And if Raheem Mostert follows the same trail he's had and is still kind of banged up, then other guys get interesting. So I think for your drafts, take a look at these backfields and kind of think, hey, you know what? It's one of the last couple picks of my redraft league. Here are my buddies at home who can have some value if something were to happen. You don't always project it, but it could happen.
Yeah, I'm not letting Gallman go to waivers this year on redraft, whereas before it's whatever, and we picked him up, but I probably will not let him get that past that last round. I probably will be going and taking him, because I do feel strongly that even if he only gets 6 weeks, I don't want to battle it out on waivers. I'd rather just have him on my team.
Playing the waiver wire in advance works to your benefit sometimes, and you can sell it later. Let's get to the next one here. So we got Troy King in the comments as well. What's up, Troy? And your Friday co-host, Dave Coogie here. Gallman is that dude, and people are Z's as in sleeping. And got more comments. All right.
Old boy, old man joke over there. Old boy.
Let's get to the next question here for our mailbag episode. We got Ivan here. Kenneth Gainwell Dynasty Outlook. So this is an interesting one because, of course, a lot of people were high on Kenny Gainwell out of this draft. He goes to a backfield that has a lead back already. But the interesting thing that a lot of people don't talk about enough is Kenneth Gainwell, when he played 2019 with Antonio Gibson, who we all really, really like. Here's the back-to-back stats here. So Kenny Gainwell in that time had 1,459 rushing yards to Gibson's 369. He also had 51 receptions to Antonio Gibson's 38. So he was that dude in the Memphis system back then. He's got a 9.7 yards per target his last 2 seasons. His build, we already mentioned one of these guys before. He's 5'11", I think 201, somewhere around there. That reminds me of the size and the frame of guys like James White and Nyheim Hines. So if he paves his way and kicks out Boston Scott and becomes that sort of back in the system, it's all going to depend on if they throw the ball out of the backfield or not. But he was good at it in college. They drafted him. So them knowing this, I think he can find some standalone flex value for Dynasty at some point. I don't know if we're going to have to wait for it, but I think for sure it can be valuable later. What's your thoughts on Kenny Gainwell here?
Well, first, can we just love Memphis for what they do to running backs? Talk about a school that produces just very dominant running backs that they're fantastic in their craft. You have Tony, you have Henderson, you have Gibson, you have Gainwell. This is an interesting one for sure. I think especially because Boston Scott did, and he's another one, right? We had a lot of this last year where it was these guys like Gallman, like Scott, where they came in, randomly having these very high weeks and then kind of just everyone either forgot about them or didn't really care. But Boston Scott's still coming off a career high season. I think Gainwell's going to have to really work to carve his way into this offense. I don't know that it's necessarily the backfield that's against him. I think it's more just what the offensive scheme there is going to be. And it's funny, that clip that we always share where I'm saying Miles Sanders could kiss my butt a little. I really feel that this team is going to either be, and hurts him a little because he's going to be running the ball. And when he's not running the ball, I think he's going to be looking to pass it to Smith, to his other weapons. And then you also have Goddard, who another fantastic weapon. So there's options there. And I think having that rush upside in Hurts, having Scott, having Sanders, he's going to have to, but I think we do see him, he's a great dynasty. I don't know that I'm picking him up in redraft anywhere, but I think in dynasty, sure. For sure. I think in 2023, we'll see that he's going to play. I believe that he will play and be impactful at some point. I just don't know if I see that in his journey this year.
Yeah, I agree. I think they drafted him knowing what he is, and I think they have some sort of plan, obviously, for him, but they have a lot of pieces to move around in this offense and figure things out. So I think from a redraft perspective, do you take him or do you leave him for the waivers? You probably can get away with leaving him to the waivers. And then week 1, week 2, take a look at, hey, how many touches is this guy getting? And then if you have to make the jump later, if he's getting super involved in this offense, you can. From a dynasty perspective, I think he's a fine pick, because if you liked him before the draft, I would recommend still going for those guys that you like. I think sometimes we see where people land and we don't think it's a good thing. And then down the road, we're like, damn, I should have drafted my guy. I love what he did and now he's involved. So two different mentalities there. I can't even look at the chat because these guys are going crazy in the chat. So I'm just, you were talking and
cracking me up. I'm trying not to laugh at that.
I was like cracking up when you were talking. I'm like, it's not you, Stephie. It's not you. All right, my buddy Kevin, I think he's floating in the chat somewhere too. Who has a better sophomore season in PPR formats, Jerry Jeudy or Darnell Mooney? So, Stephie, I'll let you go first on this. Do you have a?
Go first on this.
All right. Well, I dropped the video.
Do now, but you can go. You go, please.
I'm a Bears fan, of course. So there's some people may think there's a bias, but I'm actually not going to go with Darnell Mooney. I'm going to go with Jerry Jeudy. So I made a little clip video off TikTok about Jerry Jeudy. I loved Jerry Jeudy before the draft. He was my wide receiver 1. I think from that wide receiver 45, he's going to take a big jump. He was second in targets to Justin Jefferson in his rookie season. He was over 100, 8th in average depth of target, 15.3 yards per reception. You look and say, hey, this guy had a lot of targets, didn't do a ton with him all the time, but 25% of his balls were off target. Drew Lock had one of the worst bad throw percentages in the league. He had like 4 different quarterbacks this past season. I'm looking at this offense, and I think 2 things are going to happen. Either Drew Lock is going to figure it out and improve his play, or Teddy Bridgewater is going to be the quarterback. And for me, you look at Teddy Bridgewater, I don't want him personally. He's not a super sexy elite quarterback, but this past season, DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson, and Curtis Samuel were all top 25 wide receivers. So can he support Jerry Jeudy and Cortland Sutton? Absolutely. I think if this offense gives him the keys, he can. So it's either going to be some sort of improvement in the quarterback position. And like I said earlier, if you like a guy before he comes to the NFL, sometimes you got to stick with him unless he turns into a N'Keal Harry or something along those lines. But I really think Jerry Jeudy is just super talented. I think that the fact that they gave him so many targets this past season is going to be very similar. And I actually think he's going to take a massive jump. Nothing against Darnell Mooney. I just think they're 2 different players, in my opinion. I'm curious to hear what you think, though.
So I agree with you. And hopefully Dave has popped out of the chat by now because I know that he loves himself some Sutton. I, love Jeudy, love his talent, love what is there. I don't think he was given the opportunity to fully show us what he is capable of. He finished wide receiver 46, if I'm not incorrect. I think his points per game were like 9.3. I mean, we're not talking about a lot. He did not give us much to work with. Here's my thing, though. You have Sutton coming off of an injury. We need to see what he does in training camp before I can get excited. Because here's the thing. What's going to happen, especially with 2, and I love Teddy Bridgewater, but I'm sorry. So 2 weaker quarterbacks, I'll say, right? Where this is a weird scenario. What's going to happen is they're going to baby Cortland in like they should. That's what you should coming off of a serious injury. And then if Jeudy just gets started, it's done. I think it's done for Sutton. I think Jeudy will declare himself as the wide receiver 1. And then that'll be it, especially if you get, the Teddy connection, or even if it's the Lock connection. But at that point, he'll be so drilled into this playbook. I think that Sutton will, I think he'll be okay. I have to see him come back from that injury before I get super excited.
And can Darnell Mooney be good next season? We're not saying he cannot be, but I think for me, it's not really, I don't view these guys too close together, despite whatever the quarterback situation is going to be. Darnell Mooney, big deep threat that was missed nonstop. Could a guy like Justin Fields come in after a few weeks and use his big arm and playmaking ability to make him fantasy relevant in the flex position? Absolutely. But I think for me, clearly Jerry Jeudy here.
And you know what? Let Allen Robinson go off, okay? Let this man, he finally has the opportunity to let the dude pop off. Like, let's just let him have all the targets, just do his thing. So I am very high on Allen Robinson this year. I think he deserves it all too. Just give him all the targets.
It sounds like he's leaving though. Sounds like he's leaving.
I know, but please don't.
Man, I know. We got a good, here's a random one. What's the over under % chance Stephie is at the draft on Sunday? This is TBD.
Guys,
TBD.
trying.
Yeah,
I just don't want to
TBD.
give anyone COVID. I'm still waiting on my COVID test.
Yeah, so
That's
Stephie
very
might be.
responsible. Most
It is.
people
It
would
is.
go.
It is. In a healthy world, though, Stephie might be flying out to a league draft here in Illinois. So we're excited, but at the same time, got to make sure all is good over here. So
I hope.
All right.
Oh, fingers crossed. Gosh.
What was your worst mistake from drafting last year? Could be a player or a strategy that didn't work out. So this is from Sports Bliss with Rob and Chris. They have an awesome podcast. They are a true power couple. They get after it talking about a bunch of different sports topics
awesome.
on a weekly basis. So that's an interesting question. I have my short answer, and I'll be super honest about it. I was one of those Keyshawn Vaughn guys. I was taking him in some dynasty startups. I took him in dynasty or rookie drafts. I just pictured the Bucs backfield. I pictured no Fournette because he was not even a thought to anybody, I don't think, at the time. And Ronald Jones, never been a big fan. So I said, hey, this rookie can come in, catch some balls out of the backfield and be fantasy relevant. I was pretty wrong about that. He's down the pecking order, and I whiffed on that, and I wasted some rookie draft picks on Vaughn versus some other guys that went similar that popped off. So that's the first thing that comes to mind, Stephie, when it comes to a big mistake last year. But I guess my thought process was somewhat in the realms of like decent thinking, but not for Vaughn. What about yourself?
This is a hard one to admit. Everyone knows I talk about my wretched redraft home league where I had Dak, Galladay, Julio, Saquon Kittle. Who else did I have? Mixon, everyone that you could imagine that just totally crapped the bed. But the redraft league I do not speak of because I'm finally admitting it. But you guys got me, and I drafted Carson Wentz, and I didn't want to do it. And I was like, you know what?
Somebody else said that.
You guys are right. I'm being okay. Great. Cheers to that. Okay.
Ben said that. Ben said the same thing.
I'm like, you know what? I went to U of A. I am too high on Nick Foles. I'm too hard on Carson Wentz. He can be 2017 Carson Wentz. And then what happened? He totally forgot how to play football and just made me feel like a big jerk. So I think trusting your gut is very important. Like, I knew not to draft him, and I did it anyways. Man,
I don't think a lot of people expected that far of a drop off, and are because of something like that. So here's a side question: because of something like that, do you just like write a guy off for forever now, or what's your take on? I mean, he's got a new situation. We don't have to dive too deep into it, but when you get burned like that, are you just like out on the player or what?
I'm done, dude. Wentz has had way too many. I'm done. And it's fine because I feel like I can get better value regardless of where he's going. I'm okay. It's not going to impact me. I don't think that Wentz is ever going to get to a place where we saw him in that MVP conversation. Will he get to a place where maybe he can stop making excuses and play football? Yeah, for sure. He definitely has that opportunity, but there's still that slight chance that this is not what ends up saving Carson Wentz, as I like to call him now, is I need to see something out of him. And I don't know that I'll ever draft him again because, again, what happens? He has a good year and then they lose one O lineman, and he decides that that's why he's going to forget how to play football. So I'm out on Carson Wentz. I'm good. Everyone else can have him.
And it sucks when you see like the flashbacks in your head. You're in that draft and you remember clicking the Wentz, or for me the Keyshawn Vaughn button, and then you take a look at like the guys that went a couple picks later, and you're like, I messed up there.
Really painful.
But we all do it.
Really
we all do it. I don't care what analyst is out there. We all do it. We all reach for a guy who burns us or makes some decisions like that. So it's just part of the game. Next question from John in the chat. My guy here. Predict the order in which last year's first round wide receivers will finish in 2021. So we have Ruggs, Jeudy, Lamb, Rieger, Jefferson, and Ayuk. So I'm just gonna list mine. Stephie, you can list yours. We'll see how close we are. So
okay.
I know we've been talking about one of these guys a lot on this show.
Yeah.
Your guy here, but I'm gonna still go. I'll still go with Jefferson. Then I'll go Lamb, Jeudy, Ayuk, Rieger, and Ruggs. So that's going to be my list there. So I'll say it one more time. I'm going to go Jefferson, Lamb, Jeudy, Ayuk, Rieger, and Ruggs. I'm pretty comfortable with those last two in last place. Otherwise, curious to hear your thoughts here.
So I am starting to slowly pull back from as high as I was on CeeDee Lamb. I don't know if this is just the end of the offseason. I don't think that I still think he's going to do fantastic. So I think we're pretty similar here. But I'm going to go Jefferson, Lamb, Ayuk, Jeudy, Ruggs, Rieger.
Okay. All right. So I think
I'm not going to the Rieger thing anymore. Again, the Eagles have scarred me enough. It's Smith's time. Just let them be.
And I've said this before, and I'll say it again. I love bringing up the one tweet that I had. And again, we all hit and miss all the time. So I'm not trying to I wasn't even saying much. I said, hey, I think the Eagles will regret taking Rieger over Jefferson. I might have mentioned this before, and my comments were flooded. It was right after the draft with a bunch of people, and they had these big statements saying, no, they won't. Like, do you know much about college football? Like, this was a long time ago. And then this other guy goes on there, and he's like, not if you watch football tape, you won't. Like, all these comments, and I love to see like the big difference in that drop off there. But I'm not into it either. I don't know. I'm not saying he cannot do things, and he won't have these sporadic big weeks every now and then when he catches a 60-yard ball or something like that. But I just have a tough time buying into both Rieger and Ruggs this season.
And also, why do you draft Smith then, right? Why do you do that? If you really believe after you went and drafted him where you did, you really believe that he can do it, and then you took Smith, like that's just not how it works, right? You don't trade around in the draft to get him like that. So I do think Ayuk is getting a little slept on, and I think that between Ruggs and Rieger, I am way higher on Ruggs. I also liked him as a talent better. I think he's someone that just wasn't as NFL ready as Rieger was. So Rieger was a little bit more disappointing for me, where I could be a little bit more forgiving for Ruggs, given his situation minus the whole Wentz thing. But still, you never know what you're going to get out of the Raiders. That's the problem. Like, other than Waller, who knows? You literally have no idea.
It might end up being John Brown. It might be Brian Edwards. It might be Henry Ruggs. I think it's a massive question mark. Who's going to be that Nelson Aguilar from last season, which in itself was a major surprise to a lot of people. So that's an interesting trio of wide receivers to think about for this year. All right. Rob Norton, another good guy here. Obviously, all leagues are different, but what's your general philosophy on drafting tight ends? Are you more of a great or late type, or do you actively target the mid-round guys? If you go mid-rounds, who are your favorites? So let's save that one because I think that's part of another question that's later on the show. So let's stick to that. So what's your tight end strategy, Stephie? I feel like most people should know yours by now because I've heard you speak on it many times. So what's your strategy here?
Get a good guy and then just sleep at night like that. Just get it over with. It feels like you're taking one too early, but you're not, especially in redraft too. Like, just don't deal with it, especially when you don't have to consider things like age. You have to put them into the question. Go take Kelsey, just be done with. Then you can set your roster and not have to think, who am I starting? Jonnu, Henry, Komet, because you're not really sure. And it just adds way too much stress for me. But again, I'm learning now. This is a new thing. The offseason has gotten to my head where I was very tight end heavy in the beginning, which helped me in a few leagues. And I sold some of these guys for King's ransom, but now I'm learning I can wait a little bit and still pick up some guys with value later on. I will admit that I am doing that. So I am changing my direction, but that might be because I'm a huge Jonnu fan. I also like the value of Troutman. There's guys that you can get late that I am still high on.
Yeah, I think if you do make that move early for the tight end, then you supplement it with a guy, we've talked about it before, a guy that you see something in, whether it's, some sort of athleticism, or for me, I'm looking at guys later like Troutman or potentially Kmet who might fall into some decent target volume. But I tier these sort of things, I feel like, when it comes to the tight end position. I think you got your Kelsey and Waller. I'm putting them in their own island. This is me personally. So Kelsey and Waller, Pitts, Hawk, Kittle, and then Andrews and Fant. And then the rest is this mix of, hey, what am I looking for in a tight end? Do I want a guy with high touchdown upside? Do I want a guy who's going to be a potential target volume sort of guy? And maybe look for those guys like you mentioned, Troutman, who might be the team's number 2 or 3 target. But I think if you look at tiers of, hey, these 2 guys I would take in this round, these 2 I would take in this round, these 3 I might take in another round, and then after that determine things, I think that's kind of the way I look at it. Because I tweeted out the other day, everybody has this big strategy until your draft goes live and you realize it's not a robotic draft because everything happens not the way you want. So exactly.
And I saw a tweet today, just not to beat a dead horse, but Irv Smith is someone that everyone is very high on still, and I love that for you. I understand why, but he came out and said that he expected to get more targets, more touchdowns with Rudolph being gone. I just want to be clear that Rudolph had like 34 targets and 1 touchdown. And I think that Irv had maybe a couple more than him and then also had like 5 more touch. There's not a lot of Rudolph leaving is not changing Irv Smith's value. I almost would rather take the tight end 2 there for the upside rather than taking Irv, because I think what you're going to get there. I don't think he's going to have some big boom year that everyone is expecting. Rudolph leaving means nothing. Rudolph was not relevant last year.
And the tight ends with the good opportunity, when you don't see it, it gets tougher and tougher to buy in. I've been a massive O.J. Howard truther for a long time. I mentioned this on the show.
I can't kick him.
I am too, but it gets frustrating when you see an opportunity and then the injury nobody predict, but you see these opportunities and then you see big up and downs like Irv Smith. You look at him like you mentioned. We've been wanting it to happen for 2 seasons, and we see these little bursts, and we know that in college he was a good pass catcher and he did good things and he can make some plays and he can score touchdowns. But when you don't see it often, I think you have to start kind of pivoting in other directions and looking for guys that, what I was looking for in Irv, this other guy might be able to do. So maybe I'm taking a later shot at him.
Honestly, I'd rather have Rudolph. I'm not even lying to everyone. I don't care. I would rather have him. I think he's going to get more targets than Irv got like 40 something target. He was not very involved in the game. And even Rudolph himself over there was getting like 30 plus targets. I mean, they weren't that involved. They're not really a tight end heavy team. That's just not what they are. So I don't know that Rudolph leaving with his 30 targets and 1 receiving touchdown is going to change much for Irv Smith.
Which was strange because they split everything when they were both healthy the year prior. And then when he was gone, it was just the Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen show, and Dalvin Cook also catching some passes and not much of anything else. I think the next question here is a tight end one, so we can probably stay on that same topic. All right, Ashley from the Undroppables, favorite mid-late round tight ends. So mid to late round tight ends. Who's your favorite? We've been talking about it. Yeah. So I looked at overall ADP just for this one, and Dallas Goedert is going 76th overall. So whatever round that adds up to, he's not one of your top tier tight ends. But looking at a guy again, can this guy be the number 2 target on his offense in 2021? I think he can. And those are the guys that I look for later in the drafts. If a guy is going to be a 4th in line for target share and be really super dependent on touchdowns, I'm not as interested as a guy like this who, hey, he's going to get somewhere between probably 5 to 8 sometimes targets a game. I'm comfortable with that, even if we don't know how this offense and this offensive scheme is going to run. So I think Dallas Goedert's got the top 5 potential, and he's going way later than the other guys I've mentioned earlier, the Pitts and Hawkinson and Kittle and Andrews and Fant. I think Goddard's going later than these guys. I could be wrong with some of them, but I think that's a good mid to late round tight end if you are looking at one quarterback ADP PPR for redraft.
Yeah, so interesting. So I also agree with that. So a name that is popping back into my head that I kind of forgot about for a little bit because we had all this drama with Mr. Theatrical himself that is Aaron Rodgers is Tanyan. I'm down. Like if Rodgers is back, there's no reason that Tanyan can't have a fantastic year. He proved he's another guy, he was a waivers guy, saved me a couple weeks, but I still, there is that potential very much there for him to be a high-end tight end. Another one is Blake Jarwin. I'm not going to get over him. His injury outlook looks good. And they're going to use the tight end over there. They have Dak. They're going to get the guys involved. And I like where he's getting taken. Henry is going before Jonnu. Everyone knows, big Jonnu fan. I think that Jonnu will end up being that guy. I wouldn't be surprised if he finishes with the most touchdowns on that offense. It wouldn't be shocking if either of those guys. I could be wrong. I just see it being Jonnu.
And that's another offense that might operate through their tight ends. I wouldn't be surprised if we've said it before, methodically move up the field, running the ball, getting the ball to the tight ends, and scoring touchdowns in the red zone. So
Bill Belichick loves his 12 personnel, okay? Don't forget it.
Yep. And last thing, I've said it before, find what you are looking for in a tight end in the later rounds. Like, determine what's important to you, because what's important to Stephie might not be as important to me, and vice versa for what we look for in tight ends. So let's get to the next question here. Troy King, who are some wide receivers you are targeting after round 10? So I wanted to, I was going to mention the guy I mentioned too much. I was going to talk about Elijah Moore. He's going 164th overall, wide receiver 57. I'm a big truther. I'm going to prove that soon when I get certain things in the mail. But I'm going to talk about another guy. I'm talking about Russell Gage again, and I have to. So
I knew you were going to do it. That's why I'm pulling up ADP. I knew you were going to do it. I know you too well now.
Sometimes if I think we're close on something, I don't ask you to go first because I'm not trying to get sniped on stuff. But Russell Gage, 166 off the board for ADP Fantasy Pros. Wide receiver 58 right now.
Wow.
I had this stat. Out of wide receivers with 30-plus red zone targets across 2019 and 2020 combined, there were 11 guys. So combine the last two seasons, these guys get 30 or more red zone targets. Russell Gage is one of those 11 guys in the NFL. That is wild to me because he's been a wide receiver 3 on his own team for as long as he's been on the Falcons, as long as Calvin Ridley's been on the Falcons. So I think for Russell Gage, we've seen enough big games this past season when he gets some good volume. He finds the end zone at times. He gets the looks there. This offense is going to throw the ball a ton. This offense is going to throw the ball in the red zone. And I think Russell Gage right now is his team's wide receiver 2, if we're not counting Kyle Pitts as a wide receiver. So Russell Gage, wide receiver 58. Can he finish as the wide receiver 35 or 37 or 38? I think so. And if he does, that's a value because you're getting him way, way later in the draft. So that's my late wide receiver target. I think towards the end of your drafts, or, a guy in Dynasty that's pretty cheap right now, wide receiver 2 on a team that supports 2 wide receivers and will a tight end as well.
That's a good one. And the thing is too with Gage is like all that's going to happen. Everyone panicked when Julio Jones left. There's literally nothing to panic about. Like the targets are just going to oh my God, Calvin Ridley, guys, my brain, because I've been like so out of it. Calvin Ridley is just going to step up, and then Russell Gage is going to step up, and then everyone like Pitts is just going to get the rest of the targets. It's like not going to be a big deal. Gage isn't going to just get the same amount of targets. He's going to be more involved in this playbook. They basically only have an offense. They're going to be on the field a lot. There's still going to be a level to what Pitts can do. And then that's where you get Ridley. And again, they're going to get Gage involved. They were able to get him involved in the past. He's shown that he does well when Julio isn't on the field. So I love that one. That's probably exactly who I would have picked had you not taken it from me.
The weird thing too, just to kind of finish off on Russell Gage here, and I like the chat. We got Elijah Moore and Mike Williams. Just mentioned Elijah Moore myself.
Mhm.
Russell Gage finished last season as the wide receiver 37. So why in the world is he going as the wide receiver 58 when he has more of an opportunity now? It's crazy to me. And people will say, well, he did things when Julio and Ridley were both on the field. But at the same time, when you do things, you will do things even better when you get more volume. So I know this is a tough question with ADP. Does somebody else stick out to you? I know we're on the same page here.
I figured it out because this happened even in Scott Fish Bowl. I got him. I don't know when I got this guy, but we're looking at a guy that's getting taken as overall 136, wide receiver 55. That finished as wide receiver 18, and that's Marvin Jones. Why is he falling so low?
I like it.
Why is he falling so low? You crazy. There's no reason that this guy is falling so low. I think I got him in the 17th round or something in Scott Fish Bowl. There's no reason. This guy, I forget, he's always getting touchdowns. When he's going to get touchdowns every year. He's a very great flex value. I love Marvin Jones. He flies very far under the radar. I mean, going as wide receiver 55 after finishing as wide receiver 18, guys, what are we doing here? So he's someone that I love. I've been targeting him. He falls very, very far, and he's going to be involved. I think it's even better for him, as these guys start creeping up in age. And this is something that I've talked about when we talk about, the Tennessee Titans, where everyone wants to talk about Henry and Jones. But when you have other options around them, you can keep the guy healthier. He doesn't need to take on as much, and he can be on the field when he needs to be on the field, get the job done, and get off. And I like that. That's like my favorite type of guys. I don't want you on the field that much. I just want you to go on the field, not get hurt, get me what I need, and then get off. That's it.
Yeah.
So I like that. I kind of like these older guys that start sneaking up on 30 when it comes to wide receivers because they're not on the field as much.
And the chat is agreeing with you because it does seem like has been said in the chat here by Dave and Ben. Almost every year he's not Robert Woods, but it's in the same mentality of always disrespected, always performs to a degree when healthy. So I think that's a great call. I think in this offense, is there a world where he gets plenty of volume to be a consistent flex if you are in a deeper league? 100%. I think he's done it before. He, like you said, he was the wide receiver 18 this past season. I think what happens though, like you kind of are getting at, is these older guys the next year, the younger guys come in, or these potential breakouts are looked at so highly that we start pushing the guys that are a little bit older to the side, especially, it's weird, especially when there's a situation at hand where you don't know who's going to be the number one wide receiver in this offense.
Right.
Could it be him? It could be him. I know, I like Shenault as much as the next guy, but we don't know how things are going to pan out in this offense. So I love that call.
And also, it's a good grain of salt, and we all do this. Even I do it. It's very easy for me to want to take the flashy young rookie name that still, no matter what you saw, is unproven. And we see this every year where we get very excited about rookies, and then they come in and they disappoint you, like Rager, right? Everyone very excited about Rager, and he did not do what we all thought he would, and people were really taking him very high. So the rookies, just chill out a little bit, take them where they should go. There's some guys, again, reach for your guys, but take a proven guy like Marvin Jones, who has done this year after year. He has the team around him to at least keep his longevity, and he's going to be involved. We don't know how much, but I do believe for years and years he's always been involved. It would be hard for me to believe he's not involved.
Yeah, and having a consistent flex at times wins more games for fantasy versus shooting for the stars and missing for a majority of the time. So I like that pick a lot. Let's go to the next one here. This is a good one. I love this one when we got this one. So this is from Tyler O at FF Tyler O. Great dude. Let's say you are a baseball player. What is your walk-up song? So I asked Twitter here, give us any sort of questions. It didn't matter. So I love this. So let's say you are a baseball player. You have a walk-up song. I wrote down a couple. So I'll let you go first, but my mentality, and I'm thinking about, so me as an athlete, I was very much in my own head all the time. Like I was amping myself up in the car or on the bus or whatever the case
Mhm.
is. So I feel like I needed like a pump up song. So mine are like those like gym pump up songs, but I can see where people have like a fun song or a song that might annoy the other team or something like that. Do you have any that come straight to mind? Stephie's at bat, you're walking up and this song is on.
So this is cracking me up because, and now I'm going to go back. So I used to play softball for a very, very long time. And I was a great batter, but very funny stance. And they used to play pop, lock, and drop it while I batted.
All right.
So that would probably be one of them, just to throw back to the nostalgia. And then the other one, I have to go Big Papa. Everyone knows Notorious B.I.G. is my
On
dude,
brand,
and
on brand.
think hard ball, right? So I would probably do Big Papa just because it's kind of funny too, because I'm not a papa.
Hey, I love it though because it stays on brand, and I feel like you
Always.
walking out with that with everybody's all eyes are on you for that. So
Yeah.
I like your answers have more meaning than mine.
I
do.
know. Sorry. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Now I'm
It's
like
the
thinking
fever.
about just spitting facts over here. All right. So here's my pump up songs. So I had DMX X Gun Give It to You.
Oh, come
I had,
on, man. Yeah, it's a good
I had Trap from St. John. That was I played that one too often. Till I Collapse by Eminem.
Yes.
And then I got some newer songs. I got Wants and Needs by Drake, and then I have Lil Baby's verse on 24. So I have some like I'm trying to get into the game sort of thing. Funny story. I played high school, played college soccer. In high school, our rival, I sat in my car 20 minutes before the game and I was playing every like hot track. It was my senior year. It was our school rival. The first play of the game, because I got so amped up, I had a panic attack on a corner kick. So I had to,
gosh!
the ball got kicked out of bounds, and I was like, I got to get out of this game. So that's how much I was in my head for sports.
It's funny because at one point, I remember when they used to play that song, I would turn around. At one point, we were in a really big game, and I was like, shut it off. Like, it's not funny anymore.
That's enough.
I'm not having fun.
All right, we got a couple more. That was a good one. I love that. I want to make sure I'm not skipping any. All right. So, hey, Mr. Holman, that's my dude Jeremy. Playing a home league with him. Got to link up with him. So he asked. He's been on the show too. This is a great dude. You guys should all follow this guy.
I didn't realize you guys were connected like that.
We are. Yeah.
Right now.
He's known some people in my circle, and then we met through fantasy actually. And we've hung out in person, and he's part of a league, and he's a good dude.
That's awesome. He's like one of my favorite follows on.
Yeah, he's awesome.
He's so
funny as hell.
So funny.
Going with the humor even more here. He asked, what player is most comparable to your favorite food or drink? So this is an interesting question, but I'm going to break the question here. I'm going to do the opposite. I'm going to do the opposite. So I'm going to go in a negative way. So Bud Light to Joe Mixon. Bud Light to Joe Mixon. If it's there, and I have to take it, and it's the best thing available, I guess I'll take it. I won't like it at all, but I guess I'll take it. So that's my reference. So if I'm at a party and the only beer that I can drink is Bud Light, I'll take it. I'm not going to like it. I'll take it though. Same with Joe Mixon in a draft. Don't like it. Don't want it. But if it's there, I guess I'll take it if I have to. So that's my big analogy there. I kind of broke the rules for favorite. I went the opposite way.
I do like that.
Stephie, something come to mind?
Stay on brand here.
All right.
So Corona. No, I'm kidding. So White Claw. So this is like the most creative I can get. So I'm thinking, right? White Claw is very cheap. It's getting, it gets a little slept on for some reason, but has all the benefits that can get you drunk. It tastes very good. It's low calorie. I think it had a lot of hype when it first came out. And then everyone decided that, this is like just for girls and we're all like not going to drink this anymore. Which reminds me of my beloved Saquon Barkley. Now he is cheap. We have forgotten about him. We forgot how good he is. We forgot how good he tastes when he's very chilled and has his knees that are working just because the hype died down and we kind of forgot about it. So I'm going to go Saquon to White Claw. But Black Cherry.
The fact that the Black Cherry specifically, the fact that you don't have an endorsement like dropping stuff like this is outrageous. It's outrageous. Yeah. Like I would actually be mad going to bed every night knowing
week seven. I'm telling you, if I'm not sponsored by week 7, I'm done.
You're switching drinks.
Yeah, I'll go back to tequila, wine. I don't care.
I would too, because how many free advertisements do these guys get before they understand?
Come on, guys.
I love that though. That is a great analogy. So we talked about sleepers already for redraft and dynasty. I'm going to throw one more out. If you have one, that's fine, but you already talked about it. So if you don't know, no worries there. So another guy that comes to mind on some rookie fever. Everybody had this guy, not everybody, but a lot of people I saw had this guy as their rookie wide receiver somewhere between 1 and 3 before the NFL draft. After the draft, he has slipped so far in rookie rankings and things like that because of the state of his offense. But I think he can be the wide receiver 1 on his team. His team will probably not throw the ball a ton, but they will have to at times. And I think that Rashod Bateman is going to have some value this year. I think he can be the automatic wide receiver 1. I think that Lamar Jackson and Harbaugh are going to understand that, hey, we have to throw the ball more than we have in the past. We're not doing things and we're not winning games that we should, being reliant on the run. And to Lamar Jackson's credit, he's only had Hollywood Brown and Mark Andrews, so he hasn't really had a lot of wide receivers in his tenure here. So I think that Rashod Bateman, if you loved him before the draft, I don't understand why he's like a dud after the draft. So I'm going to say he's a sleeper. And if you have any thoughts on him,
Well, my biggest pet peeve too is like when you put out rankings before the draft and then they drastically change. All that tells me is you did not evaluate that player well. That's all I see from that. Because there's very few systems that a great player that's a wide receiver, especially in that position. Let's say I'll leave it to the wide receiver position. It's really hard to be a very good player and then go into a system and for you to totally devalue them like that. I'll add, everyone knows that my redraft would obviously be Mr. Kyle Rudolph, but we won't go down that route tonight. Another sneaky for redraft and dynasty is Nico Collins. This guy's going to get targets. Absolutely. They just came out, said he's gonna get volume over there, and I think we kind of knew that. And also, the 2 quarterback options are not. We're not talking about bad. I mean, Tyrod Taylor is a fine quarterback, especially as far. I don't care if they win, right? Like I just want Nico Collins in my flex to get me points. It does not matter to me what they do. And then the other player that everyone knows I also talk about, but he's starting to get a little bit hyped. So if you can get him now, I would do it. Is go get Jalen Darden and put him on your taxi squad before it's literally too late. Because I really think that I was watching a video of him today. He's putting on weight. He's going to, Antonio Brown's not going to last forever. This is a very pass heavy offense. And I think he's learning in a really good system. He's not NFL ready, but he very much could be under a Tom Brady. And he's, look at who he's behind and who he gets to learn from. And I heard, apparently, this is what the news is saying, is he might be on special teams. We might see him returning balls. So if that gets him involved in the game, they're obviously making an active effort. They didn't trade up to get this guy who very easily could have went undrafted. Like it would not have been shocking. But they traded up much higher than people could have even imagined if he went. So they're going to find use for him. Do I think it's going to be this year? Probably not. I mean, unless they make another Super Bowl run and Antonio Brown comes out, but he's going to be involved in this offense at some point. So if you're a dynasty player, he's a great taxi, bench, whatever it is you have, a person to get there, because the second he starts, he's going to be that guy that it's impossible to get.
And I think sometimes long-term guys that are in great systems and learn end up doing better than guys that have to play day one and don't really have much time to learn or have a veteran to sit behind and take the reps behind. And that's a great dynasty look for players. Yeah. Nico Collins, day one, I picture the Texans, whoever's at quarterback, it's going to be Brandon Cooks on one side, Nico Collins on the other, Randall Cobb in the slot. And I think that this team might have to throw the ball more than any team in the NFL because they are going to be so bad. They're going to be very bad. So they're going to have to
when you were talking, the only name that I actually heard out of all of those was Nico Collins. I think Nico Collins could actually carry this team a little bit. I think we could see this be where a quarterback comes in, because essentially, I mean, this team is turned over. This is going to be a team that you don't know what you're getting exactly out of this team. So Is it that Taylor starts and Nico Collins is the guy because the rest of them can't really pick up the slack? That could very much be the case. So I think he's a great option right now. And I loved him coming out of college. I think that I was even taking him before I thought that this was even possible, but very, very excited about him.
And he, I've mentioned before, just offers a lot more diverse of a skill set and a physical type than the rest of these guys that came out of the class.
Yeah.
He's a big body receiver. He's going to be physical. He's going to be a red zone threat. The last thing I want to say about this is for these guys, like I talked about Bateman before, Stephie's mentioned Nico Collins. If you believe in the talent, don't fade the talent because of the situation always. Because if you would have done that last year, you would have said, CeeDee Lamb, I don't want him because he's behind Amari Cooper and Michael Gallup is there. J.K. Dobbins, Mark Ingram the year before was a top 11 running back. I don't want him. And you can go down the list and justify guys that you like and say, oh, but their situation, and then you would have been wrong. So if you believe in a guy's talent and you are in a rookie draft, I think still go after it because things change and guys kind of push other guys to the side and it becomes a mistake to avoid talent at times.
And you never know who's going to get hurt. Unfortunately, I don't want anyone to get hurt, but it happens, right? That happens every year. That's why
every game
projections don't work, right? That's why projections don't work because it's too hard. You can't predict injuries. You don't know how it's going to, how the cookie's going to crumble, especially on teams, right? We just talked about this. You look at Boston Scott, Sanders, and Game. If one of them gets hurt, we don't know what's going to, you have no idea what's going to happen over there. So it's a good, if you like the player too, this is what it means, like get your guys. Because at the end of the day too, those late rounds, are you really planning to start them? No. So you might as well get the guys you believe in their talent.
Yep, I agree. Let's get to one more question. We can run through it pretty quick before we close things out here. Yeah. So I had to put this one out there because it's on brand to
even see it.
Your franchise, but I-80 Sports, my guy Bob, good guy as well. With so many wide receiver targets changing hands in New York, which Giants receiver gets left out of the mix? So Stephie, I know you don't look too much into the New York Giants, but I'll let you start things off here and tell us what you think about this question. Who's left out of this mix for wide receivers? For me, it's clear for me, but maybe we're on two different pages.
It's Darius Slayton.
Yes.
And I don't care where he is going before Shepard. If he is, that's a disgrace. I've watched him go picks before Shepard. Slayton was bad last year. Let's just be he was played bad, like not a good player. He was given so much opportunity to be good. He was the second most targeted player on this team, 52.1% completion rate with beautiful balls. I mean, on film, sometimes I can find the excuse for Ingram. I can't find excuses for Slayton. He genuinely just did not play good, but he's a wide receiver 3. He should not be expected to play as a wide receiver 1. Shepard, on the other hand, is coming off a actually very good year. It just doesn't seem that way because the Giants are not that good. But, we're talking about the difference here is a 74.1% completion rate, 52.1% completion rate. And we've seen Shepard flourish when he has the right surrounding cast. He's just not a wide receiver 1. So you get a guy that can take over that role, then Shepard doesn't get hurt as much. Is Shepard going to be some like dynasty darling for you? No. But I'm not, I wrote an article before the season ended. Don't jump ship from Shepard yet because he's still very possibly going to be a flex option because he still is basically one of the vets. He's like one of the oldest guys on this team that's been there throughout. And here's the one thing, right? So we talk about, and I'll shut up after this because everyone knows I can talk about the Giants all day, but we talk about coaches talk, right? So there's certain things you listen to. Urban Meyer saying that Etienne is not third down back is not the talk that you listen to. Him saying that Lawrence is not really ready is not the stuff you talk to. When Joe Judge goes on and says that he made one phone call before he picked Kadarius Toney, he did not proceed with that pick until he got Shepard on the phone to say, we are not making this pick to replace you. Your spot here is sound. Guess who they didn't call? They didn't call Slayton. Slayton's toast. And it stinks. I think he'll still be like, we'll see Slayton on the field. I think his fantasy days on the Giants are long gone.
I'm on the same exact page as you, and it'd be unfortunate if Slayton was like chilling with Shepard when the draft was happening, and Shepard got the call, but Slayton's holding his phone like, "What about me?" No, yeah, but wide receiver 54 this past season, right? And he had a couple big games because he's one of those guys that if he gets the deep ball and makes a big touchdown, one play can give him like a flex value. I think he's going to be on the field, like you said, because if a guy can extend the field, the defense has to track the guy, right? So you're drawing some sort of attention.
Exactly.
But 10 games this past season, 10 games under 10 points. He smoked you if you were trying to play him and plug him into your flex. You look at his team, Kenny Galladay is added. Shepard is a guy that I also wrote about in a sleeper article because I've always been a fan of him because they feed him targets every single year. Does he do wide receiver 10 sort of numbers with it? No, but they love to give him the ball because when you give Sterling Shepard the ball, he catches it. So, I mean, he's going to be part of this offense.
And he still finished higher. He finished wide receiver 44 and was on the field less and did not get the ball nearly as much as Slayton did. So I think that at the end of the day, the Giants are not a very cute offense, not a spicy offense that we want to be going after because we don't know what the picture is. At the end of the day, this offense is going to be more productive, whether people like it or not. Okay, I understand everyone hates them, whatever, it's fine. These guys are going to get more targets. So the chances of Shepard, he could easily finish as wide receiver 30. Why not? There's no reason that he can't jump up if he's doing exactly what he needs to do on the field with more targets. They barely got targets. I don't even know how he finished that high, to be honest.
And another guy that you talked about earlier, he catches a lot of passes, but was gone pretty much the entire season, is Saquon Barkley. Like, people forget that the running backs get a lot of targets. Carolina, Christian McCaffrey is going to get a lot of targets. Saquon Barkley is going to get a lot of targets. So go down the order. If it's Kenny Galladay and then Saquon and Shepard and then Kadarius Toney maybe hits at some point, Slayton is just completely out of luck, and I have no interest in him.
I agree. And I think this team too, you have to stop thinking like, oh, slot this, route this, blah 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 blah. Like, just think about, just use. These are the times
that's
you use
my
your
thinking
brain,
voice
right?
too.
Like, I'm sorry, just like use your brain, right? Like, Slayton is used on the deep ball because it's the only option that they have. Do you know he's not as good on contested catches? You bring in Galladay, he's done. Like, that's just simple math. I don't need your data to tell me that. I just watch the game. It's just what's going to happen. You take him out and you put Galladay in, and he's done. And then you have Toney and Shepard and Saquon coming back. It's done. It's just easy. It's like PEMDAS or whatever the hell we used to do in
just
school.
all adds up. All adds up. Last, it's just a comedic question here, but Michael Bauer, will the mustache come back for the Expo? And I can't do it. Can't do it.
I think your wife will kill you.
I don't know if I can rock it in general. I'll be getting some weird looks. But Stephie, as always, great show. We have a lot of fun on here, but we talk about some good stuff. I want to shout out to everybody that was in the comments. Had some people chiming in to what we were talking about. Had some people on their own topics in the comments, and we love that on live shows. So shout out to everybody who's in the comments. Stephie, as we close things out, anything you want to plug before we call it a night here?
I hope I get to meet you on Sunday. That's what I hope.
I'm crossing my fingers.
Please. So I'm going to get off right when we're done. I'm going to hop right off and catch the clinic before they close to try and figure it out. But
let me know.
As always, at Stephie Smalls, all my things are with FTN. Off Topic is finally coming out. First episode with Adam Rank. We're recording very shortly, and it's gonna. I'm very excited about it. I get to rant on my own. How fun!
Nice. That is awesome. For me, I'll be live with the True North gang, also part of Fantasy Points Media Group, in like an hour and a half or something along those lines. Other than that, keep me updated. Hopefully, we'll be posting some Twitter pics of us drafting together. That'd be great. That'd be great.
It'd be so fun.
But again, thanks for tuning in, guys. If you were live or on iTunes, Spotify, all that stuff, and have a great night.
Cheers.